Well, the election is over and we are now in the reality of things. Results have been announced and it's time to reflect on what went wrong, what is the way forward for Triple C, what the way forward for the opposition, and what is the way forward for the Zimbabweans. I've jotted down the points that I think they are very, very much important in mapping a way forward. And I also believe that this is an ongoing conversation that we're going to have on steps to see a better future for Zimbabwe. First thing that we must understand is that we must acknowledge major takeaways in this election. One major takeaway for Triple C is that they've managed to increase from 64 to 73, an increase by 9 MPs. It's a major takeaway for this election. Another takeaway is there was a narrow victory for E.D. Mnangagwa. If you 52% over 44%, it's a narrow victory for E.D. Mnangagwa. As the ZANU-PF had projected it, they had projected it around 65%, which did not happen. So for me, I think it is a victory for Triple C being able to chip away number that ZANU-PF had pegged for themselves. And to do that with no finance from anywhere, it shows you that truly people really worked hard for this. And that also brings me to another narrative that ZANU-PF always want to peddle to its voters, that Nelson Chamisa is supported by the West. If Nelson Chamisa was supported by the West, or MDC as they call it, as they always say that they are puppets of the West, this is a wrong narrative, this is a misguided narrative, this is a false narrative, in the sense that if Triple C had the finance, they wouldn't have struggled to finance their agents. They should have just asked the US to bring the finance to them. And the US was going to provide that, provided that it was going to be Chamisa who was going to win. So this narrative by Fikile Mbalula, this narrative by ZANU-PF that yes, Chamisa is a puppet of the West, it is a wrong narrative. And it is not a true reflection, because clearly Triple C used the finances that were coming from the citizens. Another takeaway is being able to expose ZANU-PF rigging machine to SADC. That was a major takeaway, and being able to expose the rigging and having that word from SADC, it's a big takeaway for Triple C. However, we must not pin our hopes on that. Why do I say that? If you recall, there was a SADC tribunal, a ruling that said the Zimbabwean government was supposed to compensate white farmers in 2007. Up to now, that tribunal has not yet been implemented. How many years do we have now? It's over 15 years now. So we must not pin our hopes on that. Another example is the Kgalema Motlanthe Commission after the August 1st. There were recommendations that they were supposed to charge the soldiers who pulled the trigger on August 1st. Was that enacted? Nothing happened. And also the other thing is that the same institutions that have been found wanting are the ones that are supposed to self-correct. Do you think it is something that is going to happen? Because one cliche that we have always heard over the years is ZANU-PF will not reform itself out of power. So as long as they want to cling on to power, they will not reform, they will not do anything that will disadvantage them. So clearly, we must not pin our hopes on SADC. Our hope on SADC could be if the heads of state are going to agree with Nevas Mumba. Why do I say that? Because if you can see in SADC who is going to clearly agree with Nevas Mumba, could be Hakainde Hichilema, the president of Zambia. And who else is going to agree or to disagree with this election? If you come to ANC, they've clearly shown their side that they are going to support ZANU-PF. Why do they have that view? They are having that view because they also have their backs against the wall. In 8 months' time, they are going to election and they need support from everywhere. And one thing that they wouldn't want is having to have a headache of an opposition in Zimbabwe, it would mean that South Africans will start to believe that they can unseat ANC and they will unseat them with a big number, which is what ANC does not want at this particular time. If you go to Botswana, the president of Botswana, he's friends with Idi Mnangagwa. If you go to Mozambique, it's the same thing. And if you go across to Malawi and other presidents, they have not voiced their concerns over some atrocities that has happened in the past. So there is no way we can pin our hopes on that. Moving forward, what do I think Triple C should do? I really think that they downplayed the issue of structures. And how do structures help in this election? And how did structures affect this election? The first thing that happened was that the agents that were sent by Triple C, how well equipped were they? How far does Triple C trust them? In the sense that you have these agents that are manning election in Harare and in Bulawayo, which are your strongholds? From what I know, the little knowledge that I know about the election, before the election starts, these agents are aware. They actually count the materials together with the presiding officer and everyone who is there. So my question is, how come on the eve of election, there was no such a communication that will raise a big alarm before the day starts that there is no materials at a polling station where agent X is there from Triple C, where agent X is in Fakose from Triple C? So that raises eyebrows to whether these agents were really working for the Triple C, or these agents, they were just people who I believe cannot be trusted. That is a major takeaway. So it comes down to the issue of structures. If structures are in place, it means that you have agents that are trustworthy, that are coming from the structures, and these agents can be held accountable. The second thing is, there is need for a different approach to the front line. What do I mean by that? We have had a situation in these past 5 years of people dying. You recall the likes of Mboneni Ncube, what happened during January 2019, what happened during the time of COVID-19, what happened to a lot of people that have, activists that have been killed during the process, even the likes of Mo Blessing Ali. What I can say is the avenues that Triple C could explore, or when they are still MDC Alliance, going into the streets and protest, which is a provision that is in the Constitution in Section 59. But what I have seen is I've not seen the leaders being on the front line like what we see in South Africa, whereby if Malema says that we are protesting, he is there in front. We have not seen that in the past 5 years, that Nelson Chamisa, in the past 5 years from 2018 up to today. That is a major concern, because we don't want to see leaders just being there to call for obituaries and burying people, whilst they are not putting themselves in the front line to fight for what they believe for the people. Another negative that we can pick up is the naivety of miracle believing. We all believe in miracles. We all believe God can work out plans for Zimbabwe. But what we must not shy away from the fact is, we must not shy away from the fact that also God requires us to do proper planning and proper organization for us to get his miracle. We are not supposed to be expecting a miracle, but we are supposed to be working. And when we have put our work and we have exhausted our ability, because we have exhausted our abilities, and God is going to intervene in that situation. So in this scenario, the question of what was the plan, I'm hearing God is the plan, which is not bad. But how many does ZANU-PF work with that, or it is completely the opposite? They are going aggressively, and in their aggressiveness, what happens in the process could be a miracle or whatever, but they have had a proper and a traceable plan. So this is what I feel, that when we had Chamisa as a plan, we don't want to reveal to the people. That plan must be clear to everyone so that everyone can execute it well. Who can go with the soldiers to war and not have a clear plan? That is a major negative. And number 4, grassroots plan. What do I mean by that? I've said it times that number. If you are a follower of this channel and if you've been following what I've posted on JCTV Africa from 2019, I have said that in this generation of internet and technology, there is an opportunity to explore that route and make full advantage of it to the rural area. And this grassroots plan, I'm talking about what Charlton Wende and Kudam Sasua were implementing last year. And they received a lot of backlash from the people in the CCC. And this has caused them to draw back into their cocoons, and they failed to apply that plan, which was a rural plan, which could have been taken up just after the by-elections, and it could have continued being perfected until this election. But alas, the people, they actually received a lot of backlash, and some people accused them of working with ZANU-PF and all of that. If you recall Charlton Wende talking about Mugwazo, if you're a follower, you know what I'm talking about. And the other thing is immediate release of V11s. There is talk about V11. But the question is, from all these agents that have produced these V11, what was stopping them from publishing them on social media or on a social media site that is accessible to everyone, so that everyone can be not in doubt, so that these V11s that they are talking about, they are not just being spoken, that they are there on paper, on paper. Because right now I saw a picture of guys holding a box of V11s. We've seen this before in 2018. But the question is, even if ZEC does not want this, if it is on a public platform, I believe that if the reason why Morgan Tsvangirai could not be rigged in 2008 was the fact that all the V11s out, and these V11s were done with primitive phones that are much archaic than the ones that we have now. So all that is what I believe in this election was missing. And if CCC is going to go into this coming election of 2028, they need to sort out all this grassroots and making sure that, because the other problem that we would have is they are relying a lot with information that they are told by CIOs that don't do this. But what you must understand, that these people that are claiming that we are working with Idi Mnangagwa, what we are telling you is fresh information. They will tell you a decoy, and that decoy is not going to help you, because remember what people that are working in the MID, that are working in the CIO, that are working in the security services. Let me give you a picture. If you are a CIO, there is another CIO that is working behind you. So what happens is that for you to release the information that is important, that is not supposed to be known, and that you are saying, this is confidential, I'm telling you, you must know that there is someone that is watching you, and before you know it, you are in trouble. So they all know that, these CIOs. So now, they are not going to freely give you that information. And if they give you that information, they are giving information that is false. And they know it's not going to work. How do I know that? Because if this information that they say, we are having information from the CIO, we are having information from the soldiers, we are having information from there, if it really worked, we wouldn't have had a delay in polls on the voting day, because that information was going to be communicated. That was a very, very important piece of information that could have been exposed before it was executed. This is why I think that reliance on these CIOs or these state agents that will be working, saying, I'm giving you information, Baba. These people, they are giving CCC decoys, and it's not going to help in the future. What do I believe as a parting shot? In retrospect or in looking into the future for the Zimbabweans, I think that opposition or Zimbabweans at large, there is a need for a new strategy, a new type of opposition, which is different from what we've had. Because if you look at Nelson Chamsa's speech that he did in 2018 and what he did today is the same old and the same thing. We are going to form the new government. We are preparing for the new government. Just watch us. We've got a good plan. 2018 up to 2023, we are still saying the same thing. So as much as we are disappointed, I believe that a new strategy, a new way of doing things in the opposition needs to be implemented, and do not play into ZANU-PF's hands. I hope I've answered some of the questions that some of you are having. And I believe that as much as we can say the elections was rigged in the sense, not in the sense of numbers, but in the sense of the institutions favoring the ruling party, one through ZBC, two through the ZRP, three through ZEC. The fact that all these things were done through the delaying in the polls, in spite of all this, there is a big need for a new plan, a new way of doing things, a different way of doing things than what has been done in the past 23 years. Whether it is, some people are suggesting we go to war, I don't know if that is a strategy. Whether it is being militant like what Julius Malema is doing here in South Africa, don't know if that is a plan that is executable. Whether it is another plan of how things are going to turn out, I don't know. But what I can tell you is, from this generation that is going to vote in 2028, this generation is not going to believe what has been happening in the past 23 years. And it's going to be difficult to convince them to be part of the voters of 2028. That being said, I would like to say thank you to everyone that has been supporting me, and to everyone that has been following this channel. Please subscribe, please like and follow, and I'll see you on the next video.